let's do this. The Great Hunt is the sequel to The Eye of the World and is just as good or better than its predecessor or prequel, Eye of the World. So let's just go ahead and jump right into story. For the story of The Great Hunt, since it is a sequel to The Eye of the World, it has to be judged on, does it do its job as a sequel? And it does. It very readily does its job as a sequel. It keeps all the characters fluid and moving, and it doesn't compromise anything. It doesn't go ahead and completely change a character just for the sake of changing the character. No, it manages to build upon everything. So what's the story? It starts about a week later after The Eye of the World takes place in the borderland city called Shannara. Well, a certain dignitary has showed up, so the Dragon Reborn, who wants to leave really badly, can't leave. He's stuck in Shannara. He's stuck because they closed all the gates because of this dignitary, and so he stays, and an item that they got in the last book, as well as the dagger Matt stole from Shadar Logoth, was stolen. So ultimately the Dragon Reborn and the other two main characters end up on a quest to go retrieve it, well as some of the Shannaran generals and army men. Well, they go through a lot of trouble to get the dagger and the item back, only to have it stolen again. A small group, the Dragon Reborn and two others, managed to get it back, only to have it stolen again. So, we back up with the rest of the group right after it gets stolen, and they make their way to a city called Falm, on the other side of the world, basically. Well, at Falm, there's a group of people that just came from the ocean, descendants of a king that used to rule in this land, and they're here to take it back. And they're a really tough group of people, the Shanchan is what they're called. Well, it ends with this huge battle and a cliffhanger for the next book. So that's the story, so on to world building. So since this is a prequel, and as I did with story, this has to be judged on, did it continue from the last book? And the rest of the series will be judged the same way. So, on story, or world building rather, did it do what it needed to do? Did it continue on the world that was already built for us in the last book? And the answer is a wholehearted yes. Yes, it did that very much. But not so much with history. There is some thrown in there, but this book really shines in two main areas, which is character and world building. So world building is really shines in this book because in this book we're introduced to the Shanchan, as I said before, descendants of a king who once ruled in this land. Well, now they're back, and they are on a military campaign, and they're pretty tough. They're pretty violent and no-nonsense kind of rulers. And they enact all these new laws and regulations and make these people swear oaths to them. And we're introduced to this culture and how they react. And they go on a military campaign to try to take these kingdoms back. And the dynamic between this group of people and their culture and the other, and this already inhabited, these people that are already there, their culture and this land's inhabitants, is just amazing for world building and for character too in some places. And we're also introduced to more cultures of this world, of the land that we're used to, that's already been really set in stone, and what we were in when the people that we were with in the last book. And we see some more of their interactions, how their cultures work farther to the north, where the Blight is, which is where the Dark One, the devil of the series, kind of stays. And they have to constantly stop attacks from the monsters of this world, and they are really hard people, and you really get to see how they interact with the world and how they view the world. So with world building out of the way, let's move on to character, the second strongest point of this book. So as I said before, there are two really strong points to this book, and one is character, one is world building, and it's kind of hard to say if one is stronger than the other, but if I had to pick, I think it's character. Character really shines in this book Because the Dragon Reborn is this person who's going to break the world. He's been prophesied to come back and destroy the world, basically. Or really, people don't know what he's going to do. He's never been reborn before. That's the whole point. He's never been this prophesied hero to save the world before, and he's never been in the world. So they're scared of him, and he's a male channeler, and they're doomed to go insane because of something that happened thousands of years ago, 2,000 to be exact. And this character, the Dragon Reborn, trying to keep it low on spoilers, he has to struggle with himself and to come to terms with who he is and what he is and what he's supposed to do, how he's supposed to accomplish breaking the world and fulfilling this list of prophecies, like that long, like super long list of prophecies. And he has to just struggle through that. And you really see the interaction with his friends, the other two main characters. You see them kind of want to distance themselves from him because he's going to go insane. He's going to kill everybody that he knows, or he's going to blow up a giant patch of land just because he wants to. He's just going to go crazy. And with Matt and his dagger, he just starts to just get worse and worse and is more angry and more cynical all the time. And he's set on that dagger. He needs that dagger back to live. And Baron's still just trying to take it all in. He's struggling too. So the character in this book really shines. So now let's move on to pacing. The Great Hunt is best summed up as this. It's really slow at the beginning, but it hits the ground running after about 200 pages. And that's it. That's all I can say about pacing. There's not a lot of those stop and go moments where, like in the first book, you're having this big long action scene and then boom, you hit a brick wall and you have to start over and gain more momentum. There's more of just this happens, then this happens, then this happens, then we've got these things that we've been looking for, and then they're taken, and then we're back to this one place, and we're back to doing more interesting things somewhere else. And so that's it. That's pacing. Pacing of The Great Hunt is one of the best paced books out of the entire series. The whole, like, from the second to the fifth, they kind of do this, second to the fourth maybe, where they're really slow at the beginning. They're more slow first 300 pages or so to 50 pages out of like 900 though, are really slow and really just sloggy. You're trying to get through them, but then after that it just hits the ground running, and you just it's just one right after the other, just more exciting things after the other. So now, with that being said, let's move on to the final verdict. My final verdict for The Great Hunt is 9 out of 10. And the only reason for not the perfect 10 out of 10 is because of pacing. If it had just started quicker and hit the ground running quicker, which it did better than most of the kind of sloggy start, but it just takes too long to get to the meat of the book, and that's where it gets the 9 out of 10, but it's still way up there on my list. And even though it's not perfect 10 out of 10, it's still a contender for my favorite, and that's The Great Hunt. So I hope you enjoyed. Hope it was helpful, I guess, if that's what these are supposed to be. And I'll see you tomorrow with the third book of the series, The Dragon Reborn.